J.J. Abrams reintroduces us to the crew of the Enterprise in Star Trek. Hey, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Vaughn Fry, and I'm taking a look at Star Trek. Well, let's look at the story first. If you're not familiar with Star Trek, it takes place in the future, and it's about many worlds working together to bring peace and harmony to the galaxy. But every once in a while, there is someone who stands in the way. A rogue Romulan, and that's a alien to those non-Trekkies, is out for vengeance against Spock and much of the Federation. And in the process of this, he ends up traveling back in time, altering a whole lot of events. And over the course of that, we also come across our second main plot here, which is the realization of who the characters are from the original series, delving into how they met, and then kind of going off on a deviant time course here, where they're actually kind of in a sort of parallel timeline, sort of like you would find in Back to the Future. Much of the story is a rehash of the second Star Trek film, The Wrath of Khan, with all of the vengeance stuff. Well, let's be honest here, it's really an attempt to reboot a franchise who has dead or dying actors. So it's also kind of a fair attempt at it. You're bringing in one of the original cast members and you're creating an alternate reality of sorts where this can kind of happen. And that's a little bit more understandable than, say, Batman going back in time and changing things up so that Nolan can create his dark reality. I gotta say that the acting here is pretty good. Chris Pine's alright as Kirk. He might be less Shatner and more Johnny Storm, but that works out pretty well. However, maybe Karl Urban is channeling a little too much DeForest Kelley because he's a little overboard with that. And to that extent, he is a whole lot like Bones from the original series in the films. Some of the other actors are not really doing the same kind of commitment here. So you have Cho, who is Sulu, kind of playing himself in a way, not exactly George Takei. Some people could have an issue with it, but I think that it worked out pretty well. If you're familiar with the Star Trek films, there's a lot of little winks to you, but if you're not familiar, it all really comes together. So anybody who has seen the movies or the TV shows, or they haven't seen either, the story makes a lot of sense to the average audience, unlike Wolverine, okay? There's a whole lot of fun to be had in the film. It was very exciting. It was very epic at times. It was maybe a little too epic for its own good. Contained in around 2 hours. You have sort of Star Wars plus Ben-Hur here. It's very much about the tailing of Captain Kirk, and then you also have the tale of Spock, in a way, intertwining here. A whole lot to do with the characters. The characterization's great. I like how they all meet. I think it's a little strange that they all have their own catchphrases developing over the course of about the same day. That's a little strange. It's a very pleasing film to see. The sound's great. The music's pretty good at times. Gotta say the cinematography and editing is very good. It's what you would expect from J.J. Abrams if you've seen Alias, not your traditional appearance in a TV show. And so it really translates well to the screen. It's not really taking us into new places in the same aspect as The Dark Knight did with Batman, where Batman was left off on a very campy note and then becoming very serious. Star Trek remained fairly reliable. There was one comedic film, the fourth one, which was very good by most people's standards, so you really can't knock it for that. I gotta say that this was not the most logical film, so I'm going to get into that in just a minute. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of break here. I'm giving it 3 stars out of 4. Stay tuned. I'm going to delve into some spoilers, so brace yourself and you've been warned. Spoilers, okay? Suppose I'm Nero and my planet just got decimated. And I don't really see what his real goal here was. He went back in time. He's trying to show Spock Spock's planet getting destroyed is his goal, okay? And he goes back in time with the help of this red matter stuff that Spock has aboard his ship, which, get into that later, okay? But he goes back in time and he waits like 25 years for Spock to show up. So I guess he has an engineer aboard his mining ship, supposedly mining ship, which also seems to have a whole ton of armor and weapons and stuff, which for a mining ship, are you right? And I guess it's the only Romulan ship left in the whole galaxy. So the Romulans had one ship that left their planet when their planet was in peril. What kind of sense does that really make? They created a time wormhole sort of thing, and he goes through 25 years before Spock. So he waits 25 years in space with a bunch of guys who agree to do nothing for a period of time. They didn't seem to have any women aboard their ship. I think these guys would rather go to the Romulus of that time, which is still in existence, declare themselves emperor or whatever, coax them into being emperor some way, say, hey, look, the Federation's going to decimate us in the future. We have it all here. We've got it all recorded on tape or whatever. Submit it for your approval. And then load up with this advanced technology that you have from the future that the Starfleet of the time they go back to doesn't seem to be aware of. Load up and get ready for battle. You get ready to intercept Spock and grab his red matter, which he brought way too much of. Suppose he needs a tiny little drop to take care of a supernova, and he brings this huge ball of this stuff. Like, how much red matter is in the galaxy in old Spock's time? Like, is there a whole bunch of it, and Vulcans have all of it? Did the Romulans not have any, so they couldn't solve their own problem? Should anybody have that much? Because you could wipe out the whole galaxy with that huge ball, and somehow it didn't. Like, it created one black hole with a little bit, but a black hole's also created with the whole bunch of it. And strangely enough, like, it crashes next to Nero's ship, and then all of a sudden Nero has a chance to be rescued. Like, hey, we can rescue you, but we're not going to. What? I can't really make any sense out of that. It seems like the black hole was made on your ship. You're dead before we can talk about it. So, hey, I didn't write it. You know what? The characters, they're written well. The way they are integrated, that's all fine and dandy. Some of the logic behind the enemy, not really that appealing, to be honest with you. So that's just what I had to say. I'd like to hear some from you guys. So if you got any real sense to it that you want to bring to the table, let me know.